I do not believe you're going to get replaced by AI. You'll be replaced by a human who uses AI. Is that this is the first time we've had a technology that doesn't just change what we do, but how we do it. Because I believe in a future that will make the most of uniquely human skills, that I actually think we can make work better through AI. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing and hoping to be able to help organizations transform. Change is hard and it takes longer than we think. And this AI is here to stay. It's a normal technology. It's going to diffuse, and we're going to have to invest in table stakes. Those leaders that are willing to play the long game, recognizing it's a marathon, not a sprint, and recognize the unique value humans bring, are the ones that are going to thrive.
Robyn Agoston, pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you're a digital transformation and
change specialist.
Excellent. I think this is a really important topic. So just to set the scene, obviously AI is now getting everywhere. The term AI is used
everywhere, all the time.
Exactly. There's a fundamental, probably misunderstanding, like there is of anything new, but this is an industry which is evolving so quickly. However, the industry of artificial intelligence is really the application of a technology into the existing world. And that world is made up of humans. So if anything, it's a human problem. Do you want to give me some background of how you've ended up here today and what your view of AI and humans is?
Okay. Well, it starts with where I was born in Canada, hence the accent. Also British by passport and sense of humor and love of Marmite, and now living in Switzerland. So my career has always had the red thread of being obsessed with work and how that operates in society. So I did my master's in work and society in Canada, and then I was a youth employment specialist for about 3 years in Namibia and Ghana before I pivoted and became a management consultant at a Big Four firm here in London. And I led the change management practice and did organizational transformation. So helping organizations change their operating models, sometimes because of M&A or restructuring or cost op, but a lot of times for technology. I then moved to a big pharma company, Novartis in Switzerland, where I then worked on different aspects of digital transformation for the last 6 years. So really looking at the overall operating model for digital and tech, and then more recently in AI. And so what do I think about this moment specifically in relation to, say, even 5 or 6 years ago, where we had a lot of algorithmic AI, machine learning, and quite detailed automation, is that this is the first time we've had a technology that doesn't just change what we do, but how we do it. And so in order to really get the value from generative AI, either tools or technology or models, we have to think about the operating model and the organization it's landing in. So the technology is amazing and will continue to be amazing. It does come with its own challenges as well, which will be solved in time. But I think one of the big challenges now is that leaders themselves do not think about the investment is required to change how people work, their skill sets, changing processes. It's really tough. So that's why we're seeing a lot of, we're not getting the return on investment in AI, not enough people.
So a core question, and I think change management is a fascinating area on the basis that if we look through, let's say 5 years, then 10 years, and 15 and 20, we could go back and look at the Industrial Revolution. What was the change and how was it managed? What problem really did it solve? Well, humans did things manually, and then we had the power of industrial automation. So it really changed. Well, people who were doing this thing over here were doing that. How things are managed, well, there's new ways of doing things, there's new expectations, there's new measurements. Then we had, I suppose, the last major one would be the internet revolution, in part at least. That completely changed the ability for information to flow, how things communicated, how people interacted in the first instance, in a completely new manner.
Mhm.
Of course, when anything happens in the consumer world,
Mhm.
in the business world, there's a direct correlation, sometimes a lag behind.
Mhm.
And I think with AI, we're probably seeing that now.
Mhm.
And then we could consider a massive change being the adoption of social media
Mhm.
in the way that it's, again, created a huge change, but perhaps not in a way which is obvious from a business sense. If we look back far enough and we look at the difference between how we may have behaved at the age of 20
Mhm.
compared to someone currently at the age of 20,
Mhm.
and think, well, if we're an employer, a small organization through to a larger organization, if somebody employed a 20-year-old you when you're that age, or a 20-year-old you if you're of that age today, what would be the difference?
I mean, that's quite a question. So, I first give it a little bit of context in the sense that what you talked about in the different technologies between the Industrial Revolution and automation and internet, these are normal technologies. And the principle would be that you have a moment of invention, then innovation, and then diffusion. And so why you get, say, an iPhone is a great example, came out in 2007. Then you saw slowly but surely apps and things being created on it. And then it really wasn't until the mid 2000 teens where everyone started having iPhones, everyone. And then it's that now phone technology is completely diffused into our society. So I think AI is undergoing the similar sort of pattern, but in a much more condensed timeline. I think when I think about myself at 20, being a geriatric or elder millennial, so I understood the internet, grew up with the internet, but I didn't have my life plastered on social media. I had university. I took notes. We didn't have laptops in class. I'm definitely dating myself, but I was able to cultivate my attention, my ability to learn, my judgment, my ability to communicate in an environment that wasn't dependent on technology. 20-year-olds today have a very different situation. So I think we've made a fair few mistakes, uh, unintended consequences with screen time, social media, what that's doing to their dynamics. COVID didn't help anything either. If you're thinking about 20-year-olds, they were in the middle of high school, which is, we all remember, a pretty seminal time in our lives, and then they were trapped at home. And so technology has always just been there and how they communicate. So I do worry about younger generations today with this technology as they're going into university. Um, if they are defaulting their critical thinking, their learning to generative AI, they're not building the foundations to really help them succeed later. Because part of the reason that humans can thrive right now, if you've had 10, 15, 20 years of work experience, is we have taste, we have judgment, we have discernment. In our areas of expertise, you can go and play with agents and Claude or ChatGPT, and you know if it's good or not. Most of the time, it's okay. It's a good starter, but you can see the holes already. If you haven't had that experience, how are you going to know? So you can talk to me about quantum physics. ChatGPT can give me a brilliant report and talk to me about it. Do I actually know whether it's
It's
lying to
comprehension.
me or not? Yeah, it's just you don't have the ability to discern whether that information is correct or not because that's not your area of expertise.
That's almost an invisible problem as well. I mean, it's visible to us, and I think some generations beneath
Mm.
us and the ones above us, definitely. But bringing people into the workforce where that is not a visible thing, because we're talking about putting a stake in the ground and
Mm.
saying this is our reference point.
Yeah.
We have and have had the ability through life experience,
Yes.
through how we learned, what we've observed. And again, in many ways, it's having an outgoing nature. And we talked before the podcast, we both had some fascinating
Yeah.
experiences. I'd love to hear more about yours as well,
Hmm.
because I think it's very poignant of how it taught you to think and see different perspectives. But in the workplace, if that's not a visible thing, and those generations are coming into that workforce believing potentially that they do know things because they think using generative AI it's what they do at home,
Hmm.
then how do you transform an organization where effectively the workforce is evolving to such a large extent mentally.
So I think if I was answering this from, say, the head of HR, right? If I was looking at my organization going, how am I going to make sure I'm getting the right talent in the right roles at the right time? Not just today, but in 5, 10, 15 years. I think we're seeing a lot of headlines coming out about certain jobs. We're no longer hiring junior talent. So we're already, that question of what do you do as a 20-year-old? You have to get them into the workplace, full stop. So even though you can potentially replace interns or paralegals or junior consultants. I mean, I spent my first 2 years formatting PowerPoint slides and Excel spreadsheets, right? That can be done by AI or will be able to be done by AI very quickly. But should you is the first question, right? So, what are you going to do when you need to hire middle managers and nobody's given any of these kids work experience if they spent their whole 20s not working in a professional environment? So you have to think about talent over the longer term now. So first, get them in there. And then I really think it's about creating experiences for younger talent to learn from those by doing. You learn so much through osmosis. You learn so much by experimenting and giving real feedback. I think one of the things that's going to be the make or break of organizations getting value from AI investments or not, or surviving this, is their ability to manage their people well. So I see a role of a leader and a role of a manager. They're no longer the bottleneck on decision making. They're no longer just quality assurance. They're going to have to do a bit of it, but it's really to help their teams do the best work they can possible and not be the preventer of them collaborating with other teams or having to be the ultimate decider. It's how do you support individuals to make the most of their careers, their own skill set, their own using of technology. It's your job to be able to do it, which is part coaching, part mentoring, part teaching. How many managers truly today actually have those skills? And I think you can take young talent. I think those kids coming in, they may not know, but they're not unteachable. And yeah, it's hard and it's going to take some time, but we should be indexing on the human to human connection as a way to upskill them, and ways we can use technology smartly to do more with less. So I'm thinking about how do you asynchronously train people through human connection or more, like, so with videos and AI you can create avatars and help people through, and GPTs. How can you augment even their own learning experience using generative AI?
I mean, that comes down to communication or leveraging different types of AI to enhance communication and absorption and adoption of knowledge. But I think there's another side to this as well. I mean, we've probably sounded relatively negative, or at least I have, perhaps. But I think equally, if the curve is flattened and people coming into the workforce all have the same sort of capabilities, if they're leveraging the same systems, naturally, to move forward and to create positive change, you can observe that, if there is the opportunity to think differently, then do something that everyone else isn't doing. And if you look at effectively successful funds, they identify the opportunity that no one else does, and they make an advantage of it. Entrepreneurs do things which are not the norm. So as part of digital transformation, effectively, if everything is changing of how things have been done, surely there's massive opportunity there for the leadership. And I think this is a good point to break down, well, what does leadership look like? So what is AI to the chief legal officer or legal department? What is AI to human resources? What is AI to sales and marketing or production? There are so many different aspects, and to see the opportunity and say, well, how can we critically think, well, what are we trying to achieve? And really looking at digital transformation as more of a, well, we're not trying to use technology for technology's sake. We're a business with a function, and we're trying to solve a problem for the customer. What technology could aid us, and how can humans work together
Mm-hmm.
in order to figure things out that other people haven't,
Mm-hmm.
or at least do so in a way which is enriching.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things there. I often say that the best place people to understand how to use AI are the people that are in those jobs today. And it is counter to what we're hearing out in the media of like, there's no return on investment on AI projects and everything's focused on headcount savings. But as a leader, if you are willing to put this out to your workforce and take them through a structured process and experiment and create a culture where AI use is transparent and open and you're learning from mistakes and you're giving people frameworks to be able to understand the risks associated with using generative AI, then you can really make the magic happen. But if you're focused just on saving money, it's not going to get you that far. But I do have a lot of sympathy for leaders at this moment because they are having to manage short-term business as usual, growth expectation, shareholder value, and while at the same time being told they have to transform their entire organization. But the reality is AI transformation is a jagged frontier. Not every function or every team is going to be impacted in the same way. And dealing with that complexity of knowing how and when to deploy AI, where creating an experiment environment to actually see if it's ready for scale. Like I see a lot of people going after the messy middle. So we get a lot of value right now from AI and agents in the extremes, either the really advanced, well-researched, high-quality data. Google AlphaFold's a prime example of really specialized LLMs that are designed to do one thing with incredible investment and resources to produce incredible value. Or business process outsourcing. Things that could be outsourced because they're automated or they're very well defined. There's a standardized process. Because if you're handing out some of your HR function or finance function to an external provider, you have to be very clear about what they're doing. And that data has to be paying people, has to be accurate. Financial numbers have to be accurate. So the data set is of high quality. That's why you see IBM able to get rid of 94% of their HR operations staff because they are able to replace them with agents. So you are seeing value in that way. The interesting thing about IBM is then they then took that money and reinvested into high value growth and innovation jobs, into their sales and marketing, into software engineers, into product developers to be able to make more money, make new money, rather than just focusing on that productivity savings. That level of understanding and discernment by the leaders, they have a lot of different things they have to look at. And I would just say the last time, dealing with the emotions of their teams and functions. There's a lot of fear that AI is going to take all of our jobs, and themselves, they've been told their whole career that they are valued because of their own expertise and their knowledge. And now they're being told they have to use AI, that AI potentially knows better than them, and they have to use this fancy decision engine, right? They're going through their own changes and having to manage the emotional changes of the rest of their organization, while at the same time working on multiple different frontiers.
And if you look at humans, specifically humans in the context of the jobs that they do, sales, people buy from people they like.
Mm-hmm.
People fall in love with the artists that play the music, but they fall in love with the personality, with the image, what it represents.
Mm-hmm.
They fall in love with the story.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at how teams operate well by solid communication, trust in each other. They go, well, this person's got my back. They understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's not most things in life, whilst technology can help in a significant degree, this is probably a turning point in business and in life to understand, well, what is it that humans have which is so powerful? And it's actually an incredibly long list.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you have a fair debate, because at the moment it's AI is going to take your jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even what is AI?
Mm-hmm.
Is it, you discussed before, is it generative AI, visual generative AI, large language model, transformers, RAG? I mean, this is where there's an illiteracy,
Mm-hmm.
which why would a chief legal officer who's got a responsibility every day and under pressure to take care of the legal status of the organization, working on contracts, but understanding, well, a contract is simply describing what the organization is trying to achieve. Maybe it's a procurement contract, maybe it's a settlement. It could be anything. But most roles, well, people are trying to do their jobs. Why would we all of a sudden expect everyone to become experts in numerous different types of technology, which is new to the market
Yeah.
and not really even understood or marketed in a way which is perhaps conducive of reality or the truth?
Because I believe in a future that will make the most of uniquely human skills, that I actually think we can make work better through AI. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing and hoping to be able to help organizations transform, because we have a pretty doomsday future view right now. And I think there's an alternative view where we could use AI to do a few things. And I say AI generally, and it's obviously very technology dependent, context dependent. It's we're about deploying the right version of the technology in the right circumstance to do the right thing. Um, but again, that takes human judgment and discernment to be able to do so. So going to the first to the skills point of view, I think if you are in a knowledge working job, so if you're spending most of your time at a laptop or in an office, or that's the main terminal of which you're creating value, even if you're dealing with humans in your day to day, if you're typically some sort of office type worker using a laptop, it is in your best interest to be understanding what generative AI is in terms of how the models work, how they've been trained, what are some of the kind of trends and the capabilities and the language around it. Because again, for you, if you are the best place to understand how to use AI, you need to understand how it works, because then you can see how to get the most of it, what it's really good at, and what its limitations are. And that is absolutely essential for that first step of moving from kind of AI assistance, which a lot of people do in terms of, say, you know, meeting transcripts or summarizing documents. That's what a lot of people are using Copilot for. If you're going to use to the next phase to augmentation, to actually use AI to take away some of your rote work, maybe do some things faster, really help be a thought partner in a group of tasks that you're doing, you need to understand how this technology is going to work. So as an individual level, that is absolutely essential, because that adage that came out a couple years ago, I do not believe you're going to get replaced by AI. You'll be replaced by a human who uses AI. So everyone should be doing that. But that's at an individual level. If you are a chief legal officer, for example, I would want my team spending most of their time doing things that create the most value. And that often in those environments is high touch, high human collaboration that indexes on communication and empathy and creative thinking, analytical thinking, maybe social influence, being able to negotiate, as in this case of legal. You'd want to free up their time for as much as you can to create value in that way, and do away with a lot of the rote work that sits underneath, or expedite the work that they have to do to be able to make sure that they have time to really be the best humans they can be at work. And I don't know about you, but I get the most joy from actually interacting with colleagues. I do not get the most joy of sitting with Excel spreadsheets at home. Like that's what I mean about making work better. If we can use AI for its amazing capabilities in different contexts and recognize that human capabilities have unique value and have a lot to add, and there's a lot of tacit knowledge that exists in the humans that we have, then those two things combined, that's really what's going to transform work. But it's this replacement narrative that I think is really undermining both humans and AI in this equation.
Well, that narrative that you're talking about, I think it's very important to state from the observations we've had with all the different guests, the mass public narrative is not representative of what the majority of experts and people in industry actually know to be true, are saying, or believe, before the hype, during the hype, and I'm sure after the hype. So an interesting standpoint, and my dad was in advertising, so he was an art director, and art directors would work with copywriters. So one's the visual side, one's the word side, and every campaign every commercial, there would be, well, what's the product?
Yeah.
Who's the audience? What's the culture around it? So obviously every brand has an appeal and identity. If you think IKEA, Coca-Cola, or Smart Water, which I'm just looking at on the floor, you could look at any particular brand and say, this is what a customer looks like. Well, how do you talk to that person? What's the tone? And a copywriter would sit there with an art director, and they would have ideas, and they'd play and they'd draw ideas up. So it's a physical activity. There would be words which invoke emotion, and there'd be color. There'd be imagination. And throughout that process, maybe they go through 10, 20, 30 designs, and they're not criticizing, but they're giving objective views. They're observing the excitement, or here's an idea, how about that? And you watch people's eyes light up. There's all of that human interaction, which some of the best times, the most memorable visual artwork or slogans, brands that were built, and the emotional attachment to that, because the best ads would never show the product.
Absolutely.
But you remember, and I'm sure we both from our respective backgrounds could remember jingles and theme tunes and things which become part of culture, that become part of time. That really hasn't changed, but I think we've forgotten how to do that. Now, at all the particular stages along the way, I mean, Professor Yeezy Song, we know well, he created sketch labs.
Yeah.
So his vision was always, imagine you could just sketch and then it turns into reality. And I want to sketch like Picasso, and any idea. So the rapid transference of imagination into something which can be tangibly communicated to others in the context of the ad industry, marketing, could be super powerful. Because the problem is there used to be magic markers. And I knew a number of illustrators, and they would come up and they'd be drawing away, and you get all these pens that wander around with these huge bags of pens, just typical visualizers, and that would take for ages. The visualization capability came from the ability to hear clients and numerous different stakeholders describing something, observing, and then visualizing what that meant.
Yeah.
That individual operating the right AI could be transformational. The output could be fantastically better.
I've got something that's even higher stakes than that.
Okay.
Which we're talking about the same thing. And I have a number of friends. I come from a healthcare background. I'm not a healthcare practitioner myself, but going in pharma, I have a lot of friends and colleagues who have healthcare backgrounds. And I have a dear friend who is an A&E nurse. And she said at least once a month, there's somebody that walks in who is deeply unwell. You run the kind of standard tests that you expect, and it all comes back normal. And she said, and in your bones, you know they have cancer. And then you go out to the nurse's station, you talk to the doctors, everyone kind of goes individually. And I was like, yep, yep, yep. And then you sit and you try to think about what tests you need to run to go find it. And sometimes they find it and sometimes they don't, but inevitably they're never wrong. So when we think about healthcare applications of AI and diagnosis through different LLMs and the like, they don't have that instinct of standing in a room and something in our fiber of our DNA is connecting, going, this person has cancer, this person's sick. And that's based off of years of knowledge and experience, but also dealing with that human connection that we can't describe what that is. Nobody can really say why a certain brand resonates more than others. You hope. There's lots of brands out there that try, that don't, but in every profession, there's moments that require that, I'm calling it taste, essentially, of being able to have a wealth of information, conscious and subconscious, that you're pulling together that gives you that gut feeling of it's going to work or not. And I don't think that, at least right now, that AI can reproduce it. It can try to mimic it, but it feels flat. Anybody that's ever tried to write with AI or copywriting knows it's not It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't.
Plastic.
Yeah, it's just plastic. It is when you think about how these models go and what they generate and how they use statistics for the likely probability of what should come next, it starts to sound quite generic. But that isn't to say that they can't AI in that context of cancer. Wouldn't it be amazing if our medical staff could then go to this AI and go, "Hey, I know this person has cancer. These are their test results. Here are their symptoms. Where do I go next?" Use it as a thought partner in that little conference of the nurses and doctors figuring out what to do, because that capability has access to more information and understanding that we as humans have access to at any given moment. So how do we bring those together to really say, diagnose that patient as fast as we can?
That's a great example of a real problem
Yeah.
to solve in the human element. I mean, on the weekend, I was, for one reason or another, ended up on Omaha Beach, which was one of the beaches in the D-Day landings. 5 miles of beach, absolutely beautiful. And I'd also gone to the little museum and began to see what had happened there and the sheer amount of people that were killed in the first 15 minutes of landing. And seeing a lot of the things from that time, from all the various different sides, and just seeing how it looked, but being there in reality and just thinking how much horrific bloodshed there was there. That's not anything, because obviously it was taught it at school, never really had any comprehension. But standing there and hearing the waves, and you can look out and having seen what I'd seen before I went onto the beach, that was a completely different experience, which humans together, I have no doubt, would think completely differently in a positive manner and make decisions and have discussions which would lead to problem solving in daily life and a business. And it sounds like a peculiar stretch, but the consideration of where we have been and what it means today, there are so many referenceable points of decisions that are being made, beliefs that are being put into place, actions that are being made, which have a strong link. I mean, this is where the social media element comes in. And why? Thinking. The ability to think and just look at another human being and think, we should question certain decisions. And also, what's the value and the importance on things? And just looking at a spreadsheet and saying, oh, well, we can do that. Technically, academically, the world has never, ever been a representation of the academic theory.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's a hugely important point.
I think that, again, humans have two advantages right now: the ability to connect to the physical world and the ability to connect to each other. And that may change sooner rather than later if IO, the Johnny Ive and Sam Altman venture, creates something where AI can completely observe the physical world. But even then, it's just observing. That it's just visual. It's not feeling the spray of the ocean on your face. It's not feeling the wind in your hair. It's not using the range of senses. So it's still, even if it can observe the physical world, it's not connecting to it the same way humans can and with each other. And again, if we bring it back to what's happening in organizations, a lot of what work is, at least knowledge work, is done through human connection in the physical world. So again, coming from the healthcare background and from pharma background, running clinical trials is an incredibly complex venture. Picking the right sites for running these trials in, trying to find the right patients. It is highly regulated, highly standardized. Lots of patient safety is paramount. There's so many rules guiding what they do. And yet, it is very much dependent on humans who have expertise in a particular area to make judgment calls around, Is this site going to be worthwhile or not to do this? Is this patient a good candidate for what we're doing? They've meet the thresholds, but are they going to be benefiting from this? Are we able to keep going in trials year on year? Is it giving the data tells us one thing, but also understanding the logistics of this. Sometimes there's been medications and drugs that have reached quite late stage, but we can't figure out why they're working. So we know we're not going to get regulatory approval. That's the data telling us that we can't do it. But the human instinct is going, yeah, but we physically are seeing the results. And so data is an incredible indicator.
That's discovery.
Yeah.
That's part of the magical ingredients of discovery. And seeing that that's something working and going, well, there's lots of things we can see work, but we can't explain why. That inquisitive mindset of let's explore, and having that capability of AI driven and enhanced scalable capability really does open a lot of doors, but it's an intrinsic relationship.
Absolutely. And it's again going back around to the top of this conversation. It's why the best people to know how to use AI are the ones in their jobs today. So a lot of leaders that keep investing in AI, the technology side of things, which is absolutely important to get right, if they're ignoring the rest of the operating model, it's only going to get so far. And they're not going to see the kind of level of change that they expect from this technology, or people aren't going to be able to use it in the ways that they either trust it, that it actually delivers the results that they need, that they understand where those results are coming from. There's a lot of human factors that not just even use this technology is a big enough jump as is, but then actually redesigning how somebody does their job, that takes a lot of effort, and it seems to be the trend that is missing in the headlines at this moment. You go in and talk to leaders of organizations, people are starting to get it, for sure. But it's daunting. If I come in and say, hey, you have to now reorganize your company to think about jobs, not just what people do, how they do it. And actually, we have this whole new set of capabilities that is going to augment a lot of your workforce. So the traditional very specialist expertise doesn't hold as much. We have to think about teams differently. Oh, and we actually don't know what capabilities are coming in technology in 2 to 3 years. So we have to make sure that your organization can adapt, even though we don't know what the future is. That has never happened in knowledge work before. It's happened in manufacturing, it's happened in other industries, but it hasn't happened for traditional corporate work. And it's terrifying for people. Because it's like, where do you start? You can't
Well,
eat the elephant all at once. You have to eat it one bite at a time.
I think you've just mentioned a point there. Where do you start? Given it is a daunting task,
Mm.
and you have your own consulting.
Yes, I do.
Tell us about that, and with your ethos and your approach. If you were speaking to, and hopefully with the audience we have, key business leaders who hold that responsibility, and the many others who are part of a chain of command, and in areas of responsibility where this falls in their remit. And I think as a human, that's probably applicable to everyone. Where would you begin?
Okay, so if I'm going complete basics, the first is understanding where people's AI fluency is. So what we talked about before, do they understand how these models work, how much they use them? Is it just assistance? Are they actually using them to deliver value in their jobs? At all levels. I think there's a lot of generative AI use, great use that's happening at the lower levels and kind of middle management. I'm not sure if leaders have had the time and the or incentivized to be able to really understand this technology. And that I'd be start with yourself and making sure that you understand and your organization has a degree of AI fluency, that they are knowing not just how this technology works, but have mental models to be able to apply it to different contexts, understand the risks, how to evaluate generated outputs, running their own benchmarks, seeing how it evolves, what works, what doesn't. So starting there in your own space. But then as leaders, I think before you even get to, you never solve a business problem by sticks and boxes, right? I'm not suggesting that we go and reorganize everything for AI right away. But you do have to start thinking about what is the culture and behaviors you want to see from your team. So are you encouraging AI use? Are you providing them with the right tools and the right upskilling to be able to do so? Are you As a team leader, for example, dedicating time together for collective sense making. So people used to say to me like 10 years ago, we want to be more innovative. And my first question is, how much time are you creating for your team to pursue innovation activities, either learning or curiosity or getting together to thinking about different ideas in terms of creative problem solving? It's the same thing with AI. How much are you actually dedicating as part of your teams to seeing how this technology can be applied in the specific context? Are you rewarding that? How are you managing your performance? So I was in an HR conference a couple months ago where somebody said, "Oh, well, how do you performance manage digital outputs as well as people?" One of the things say again, humans have to be responsible for the outputs generated with AI at this point in time. We might get there to a point where we can take humans out of the equation, but right now we can't. So making it clear that yes, we want you to use AI, but we also need you to apply your judgment and discernment to make sure those outputs are actually useful. But also, let's talk about it as a team. Let's really think about the way that we can work together to get the most of this. And that will go a huge way just to get the return on investment of Copilot, which a lot of big companies have bought into. And that's where you start in terms of the culture. Before you start thinking about removing jobs or reorganizing jobs, start building the individual and the collective resilience to be able to take on a technology, experiment with it, see how it can be applied in that particular scenario before you start doing these top-down big strategies. I think that's a major fail right now. I think absolutely companies do need to invest in AI and be very strategic. There needs to be a few from the top going, that's my big bet. That's what we're going to invest in. That's what we're paying C-suite to do. But to run your whole program like that, these models were not programmed. They're grown, right? They're generative technology. So thinking about creating the capabilities of your human organization by programmatic top-down directives isn't going to work. So it's all about bottom-up capability building.
That makes perfect sense. The word resilience there as well.
Mm.
Maybe this is a good point to, again, root things from a human perspective of where you learn on the very core resilience, because I think that's a really valuable experience that people would relate to.
So we were talking about this before the podcast. I grew up in restaurants. My parents had a couple of family restaurants, and my brother and I both started working part-time at 13 in our summers and did every single job in that business and was always my part-time job through university and summers and Christmas holidays and the like. And I think about the resilience that built. I didn't realize it at the time, but the communication, stakeholder management, the ability to have multiple priorities competing all at once and prioritizing and moving quickly and being able to multitask at the same time and watching essentially what is a production line to create an experience. Um, my brother is now a television producer, and I go in and help organizations fundamentally change, and they both require systems thinking. They both require prioritization and an ability to talk to people, ability to persuade people and really give people a positive experience through communication and the like. And I just think when I look at that, what that gave me for my own corporate experience, it was the best possible training ground. But even still later in life, like I am a qualified mountain leader, I'm a qualified ski instructor. I spend any free time I have in the outdoors because that makes me a better human as well. Usually with people I love, which is great. But that kind of connecting to the physical world is also building resilience, pushing myself physically to go climb mountains, or be out in the cold all day, every day skiing. Like that is something that actually builds resilience as well. And I think we shy away from hard things and are preventing our kids from doing so as well, when really that has hugely transferable skills to the work environment. I think we often think that work-life balance, that life shouldn't impact work, but work impacts my life every day. And it's a two-way street. And I think these sorts of experiences outside that are really focused on connecting with the physical world and each other may play a huge role in what we're able to do in the workplace.
They're two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a common theme with the majority of the guests we've had on, is that resilience, is that life experience. And you don't think one way in work, then think a completely different way when you go home.
Absolutely.
It's work is an activity that you're performing during the day. You have actual human relationships. You walk into a room, if you're responsible for people, you should have that empathy, which you learn from your daily life. You learn from your childhood. You learn from the ability to observe, well, why is this person stressed? Why is that one happy? Why is that one sad? What's going on? How is that going to affect things? And obviously, in a restaurant, is a fantastic microcosm of all of that high stress, high pressure. And there's the other side to it as well. I've often said eating in a Michelin star restaurant is a completely different experience from cooking in a Michelin star restaurant. And the music industry is very much the same. People listen to the product and they're consuming the product. The world behind it is completely different. And actually, only partial music. The majority is about human experience and mood and emotion and discipline, turning up on time, putting the work in, being prepared to not get it right 100 times. So on the 101st time, but listening all the time. That works, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, try again, try again, try again. Bit of magic, that works. And observing other people and looking at their, not listening to the music behind, but looking at the audience, thinking, they've stopped moving. We broke the track at that point. Or they're tearing up. Something's hit a nerve, something's moving emotionally. And the ability to read all of that in time, I'm sure AI will be able to augment, but for the purposes of assisting and in many ways turning humans into 4 times more powerful than they are from an output perspective.
If we're intentional and considerate about it. That doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't happen by, it has to happen by design. And that is what I'm trying to do, is design work for the AI era, because I think it's going to look very different than what it does today. You had said something earlier about people go to work and perform. And there's a lot around performance. I think one of the reasons why people are uncomfortable about AI right now is that it pulls back what actually you're doing to create value. And there's a lot of jobs that are potentially indexing on applying a different process, or a lot of paperwork, or a lot of creating dashboards for senior leaders. And it's like AI all of a sudden can do a lot of that for us. So what is our value in the workplace? What is the things that we are doing to create value? And it's exactly as you said, the experience, creating an experience at work with our colleagues. So if you're a manager, making sure our teams are being able to do the best work they can. If you're in sales, connecting to different humans, because people buy off of relationships. If you're having to make judgment calls, if you're being creative, it's using those human skills that really could make work better. But that's often not how we reward people.
No. And the final point which springs to my mind, which again is a consistent theme, and I think you're effectively delivering and encouraging, is purpose. So purpose in your personal life, purpose in your professional life. If you remove purpose, and a lot of the narrative, which I fundamentally disagree with, the idea that AI will make everyone's life where they won't need to work, they can just sit on a beach and drink cocktails, and effectively remove all purpose. Anywhere that people have lost purpose, it's turned into nasty behavior, increase in suicide, loneliness, conflict, everything that is bad. Everything that we've seen positive is the application of purpose to achieve something, to create something, whether it's artistic, whether it's the determination of success. But purpose requires, well, resilience, the consideration of, this is our goal, this is our objective. How can we do it as a team? Even coming from Newcastle, being a Newcastle fan, I watched a podcast with Amanda Staveley,
Mm-hmm.
who had gone to the club, and she was like a mother when the big takeover happened. And the things that she found important were, how can we get these young men, as professional footballers, very young, earning a lot of money, but very solitary lives, have to work really hard. How do you take care of their well-being and encourage them to communicate and to form human relationships as part of a team to work together? The importance of even the tea lady, which on a corporate standpoint, you'd say, well, pointless job. You could change it with a robot. That the kindness of a tea lady, the familiarity of the faces, the kind of the grandmother in the room, that these men will think like when they were little children.
Yeah.
The respect, the communication, the dynamics of how things play in. I mean, and obviously as a football fan, they've had some success, but it was the first time in 7 decades. What changed? And when you begin to look at what changed, it wasn't money. There's more commercial success because humanity was injected back into it.
Yeah.
Which is something I think the people of the Northeast understand very, very well. It's a very warm place with warm people. But that mentality, the application of purpose, really, if that's the driving factor, and that everything from change management applies that at the foundation, it's actually a time of an incredible opportunity. And the right leaders could create incredibly successful organizations with incredibly successful people. And
Absolutely.
It's a choice.
It's human-centered leadership, human-centered transformation. But one of the challenges that we keep coming up against is the relentless pursuit of shareholder value is the only measure of success. When really change is hard and it takes longer than we think. And this AI is here to stay. It's a normal technology. It's going to diffuse, and we're going to have to invest in table stakes. That's just going to be part of the job. Those leaders that are willing to play the long game, recognizing it's a marathon, not a sprint, and recognize the unique value humans bring, are the ones that are going to thrive.
So effectively, and I think a key point here, phrasing that in a different way, and I've heard Forrester talk about it and numerous analysts before, those who continue to do things as they have always been done won't be around in 10 years. So where chasing short-term shareholder value has been the thing, that's going to be the death. So it's not really on the table anymore. So it's a case of how right will you get the alternative, and how right will you get it first time rather than second, third, fourth, or fifth. And that's where what you're doing, I think, is extremely important to getting it right quicker.
Absolutely. But I would say it's okay if it doesn't quite work the first time. That's the thing about the unique moment we're in. Resilience means when you get knocked down, you just stand up and try again. You hope you didn't fall and break something, but you're going to get up and keep marching. And that's what I think as leaders, people are deeply uncomfortable with, is that they don't know. But admitting you don't know and saying, hey, we're in this together and we figure this out. And I value you, your expertise and your knowledge and your opinion about this. And you are going to be the best person that's going to help us guide this journey. That is actual true leadership and authenticity and putting humans first. I am so amazed by AI every day and where it's going, and see there's so much potential for it to solve some of the world's biggest problems, to make work better. I really believe in AI, but I also believe in humans. And if a leader is brave enough to say that and take their organization along for the journey, saying, I don't know everything, I'm not going to get everything right. I think those are the ones, especially in the larger organizations that have so much institutional memory and bureaucracy and pressures that they're facing. It's a big ask, but those leaders that do, I think, will make the biggest impact and will be around in 10 years. Those who don't are resistant, I agree, they won't be here, or not at least in the form that we see them today.
So your company is called Human Fluency. Explain what that means to you.
So we talked about AI fluency and the ability to use AI tools in the right context. But as I've been saying all along, I really believe in humans and I really believe in the unique value that they bring with their skill sets. How you can get the most of both humans and human skills and AI and putting that together. So that 1 + 1 = 3. So when I think about uniquely human skills, I think about the soft skills, thinking about, say, empathy, communication, collaboration, uh, big picture thinking skills, creative thinking, systems thinking, analytical thinking, those taking variables and huge amounts of information and making sense of it. And then also social influence skills, the unintended consequence of social media and now with image and audio generated AI is that people will be valuing authenticity more than maybe previously. So an individual's ability to communicate authentically and effectively, a leader's ability to guide an organization from a place of being human, I think, is a uniquely human skill. It's not just a drafted memo, it's not just a scripted corporate video, it's actually going out there and showing that they're also human. Um, we'll always need specialist expertise. We need experts to be able to have some functional knowledge that they can bring in both of these contexts. And then I also would just say to people, it's super important that you index on what you like to do. For me, I love teaching. I love standing in front of people and relaying information, creating different ideas, problem solving. That's where I really shine. And so the combination of those things together is really was what going to make humans fluent in this moment in time to navigate their own career and for these organizations to build operating models that will actually be around for a long time, deliver value, and deliver great work.
Brilliant. Well, it's been a brilliant conversation.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Graham.